ladies, hey, congratulations for your documentary At the Ready.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, so how does it feel that your documentary is being showcased here this year at the Sundance Film Festival?
I think we're all really excited, and I'm really excited to be in Sundance in particular this year because the film won't just premiere in front of an audience in Park City. It's going to be able to premiere in front of an audience around the country, and in particular in El Paso. And I'm very, very excited that the community featured in the film will be able to see it the first day that everybody else does.
Excellent. So let's start off with the easy question. What sparked you ladies to actually do a documentary at the Ready in the first place?
Yeah, we're all based in Texas. I'm from Texas originally, and I moved back here after the 2016 election because I wanted to work on stories in my home state and look at how people were being affected by rhetoric at the national level. And I thought, what better way to do it than through the eyes of a high school student? And that really led me down the path of trying to find a film and a story to tell about high schoolers during the last 4 years.
Why El Paso in particular?
Yeah, I wanted, El Paso has been in the news so much because it's really a place that has so much going on, and I think also was caught up in the rhetoric of Trump, and that drew me there. And we focus on a school, Horizon High School, which is right outside of El Paso, and we went to a number of schools on the border, and that school stuck out in particular because of one teacher, Miss Weaver, and she really welcomed us the first time we visited and was really open to sharing what she was teaching and introduced us to students. And we really had the opportunity to get a real sense of their lives.
Excellent. Well, let's go into a little bit of the production of it. Were you always gauging that it was going to be sort of like a year of the high school, of these high school kids?
Yeah, that was really the plan. And we started filming the year, I guess the end of the school year before the school year that we followed, which is how we got to know Christina. And for those of you who will see the film, we follow her as a recent graduate of the program, and then we spent really the traditional year in a life of a student with the other two students.
So how many students that was originally in the plan to be actually covered? Because in the film you basically highlighted 3 main students, but I could imagine a production like this, you actually covered a whole lot more high school students, but you have to pare it down into like an hour movie. Am I correct?
Yeah, we followed 4 students for a lot of filming, and in the end really focused on 3 stories. Early on we did kind of really focus on Christina, Mason, and Cesar because we knew we wanted to be able to really share some intimate moments in their last year of high school or in their first year post high school. And so we wanted to, instead of casting our net wide, really, really get to know these students and their families.
Tell us the narrative that you really want to portray in this, because with those 3 students, those were 3 different types of stories. Right. But obviously there probably was a dozen reasons why everyone actually wanted to participate in these type of programs.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many reasons why one would likely participate in the program, and there's so many different stories. We were really trying to look at this world through the eyes of the students. And so we were drawn to these kids that we chose to follow because of their willingness and their openness to discuss some really difficult topics and be very forthcoming with us. And I think their willingness to share their vulnerabilities shows through on screen, and that's what is, so I think what makes them so compelling.
Were they hard to convince to participate in the production? After all, they They have to be interviewed, they have to be videotaped, you know, that kind of stuff?
No, I mean, that's why I always like to say I don't really ever want to like force anybody to be on camera. I don't want to chase anybody down. I'm much more interested in collaborating with individuals that want to share their story. And that's why I think all of us really view each of these students as participants in the film and not as subjects, because they were very open. I mean, I would say the most challenging main character to film was Cesar, because he was, you know, a high school boy, and here, you know, I'm a middle-aged woman trying to like really get into some of the more difficult things that he's had to deal with as a young adult. And at times he was very open, and at other times he was kind of like, okay, I want to like hang out with teenagers now, like, bye lady. You know.
Abbie and Hillary, what kind of support did you offer for a production like this for At the Ready?
Well, I came onto the project very early on when we were in development, and so I did a lot of support in the field. I was kind of lockstep with Maisie through most of production, filming in the classroom and at the kids' homes. And then Hillary, we were really lucky to have come on in post, and she can tell you some of the great things she was able to do for us.
Yeah, we always joke that it's a relay race of a film. So Abbie sort of passed the baton to me, sort of, when we were in the edit. And, you know, I was just there to kind of give Maisie somebody to bounce ideas off of and kind of hear the story through her words and meet the characters through the footage. And, you know, that was just a really fun process to be able to see the footage that they had captured and see these raw moments, you know, that Maisie's so good at getting, because the trust and the relationship, you know, is there between the participants and Maisie. So yeah, we got it to the finish line.
Absolutely. And so from start to production, you basically videoed an entire year. But one of the things that this entire year encompassed was them in preparation for the competition, which is myself being from California, this is actually unheard of. I've heard of police explorers, but I never heard of high school students going through some kind of paramilitary training, you know, in the first place. Could you talk more about that?
Yeah, it actually is very similar to Explorer programs, except it is in schools. And in some of the competitions, Explorer programs like Police Explorers also compete with the high school programs. So this program was introduced in large part during in like 2015, although this program is older, during a push to get more vocational training in schools. And in a place like El Paso, where you have every federal, state, and local law enforcement agency represented, it makes sense that there are kids that are drawn to that career path, because that's, you know, certainly a job that they see modeled for them.
Was how much of the law enforcement actually influenced into your documentary, or did you want them to like be out of the documentary completely, just to focus on the kids?
What do you mean? How much of the
like did you actually get like law enforcement input, support from the local law enforcement? Did they try to influence you in any way?
No, not at all. And you know, I feel like my approach to storytelling in general is not like trying to find expert witness or testimony or anything like that. It's more about finding people who have interesting perspectives and then really trying to look at the world through their eyes. So, you know, I met a lot of law enforcement while I was in El Paso, and they were all, you know, very open and willing to have conversations with us. But we never really considered having them be any main focal point of the film.
Excellent. And you mentioned that the teachers are actually very supportive in their own way. Did you actually get into why they support these type of programs, or they just want to train for future law enforcement individuals?
Yeah, I think they all went into teaching via different avenues, different moments in their lives that brought them there. They're all retired law enforcement officers, and I think they saw this as an opportunity to engage with youth in their region and teach them what they know.
Excellent. Now, obviously, your film is coming out now, which is interesting, is because the timeliness of the subject, the it couldn't be more perfect timing, because we're talking about last year with Black Lives Matters and the protests. We're also talking about the election we just had, and not only that, there was also the El Paso shooting that also occurred. Could you talk about the timeliness of your documentary and what you're thinking or predict that may actually, how can you say, influence people?
Yeah, you know, when we started making this film, when we became aware of these programs, uh, there had already been rhetoric around from Trump around the border, and there had certainly been a lot of rhetoric around policing, and so it seemed like a natural direction to take the film. I don't think we could have anticipated the pandemic, obviously, or what happened to George Floyd and the response to his death. But it did make us so much more aware of how important this film was. I think, though, in the edit, we always tried to come back to the experience of the three kids that we were following, regardless of what was happening nationally. We only pulled in national news when it had a direct impact on the way these kids were processing decisions that they were having to make. And so, yeah, there was a lot happening, you know, and we really had to, you know, isolate ourselves and focus on, well, does this story actually impact Christina, Mason, or Cesar? And if it doesn't, then let's not try and include it, because again, this is a story about their lives.
Absolutely. Of course, viewers are going to be watching this and realize that you included a Mason, a clip of Mason towards the end. Were you aware of the transformation with Mason during the production, or do you basically was aware of it recently and decided to include his story towards the end?
Yeah, I would say I found out, and I'm going to refer to Mason as Cassie because that's how the viewers will see Mason in the film, because we only filmed Mason during his senior year of high school when he was still Cassie. And so the first time I found out that Cassie was struggling with some of these identity issues was when she told me that she was gay. And that wasn't until, like, I don't know, we had been filming for quite a while, and it kind of like came about in the same, you know, if the film's an hour and a half and you find that out, I don't know, 1/3 of the way through, that's kind of symbolic of the filming. Like 1/3 of the way through when we were filming, Cassie shared that with me, and she felt like it was a very important part of her story. And so we wanted to make sure that was included. And then we finished filming and we were in post, and Mason called to share that he had transitioned. And we originally wanted to go film a final scene with Mason, but because of the pandemic and because we were all in Texas and things were just getting worse and worse with the pandemic, we didn't want to put Mason in a dangerous position because he was still quarantining, and it made more sense to share his YouTube video where he shares with the world that his name is Mason. And we discussed that with Mason before including it and really made sure that that was how he wanted to end the film.
Absolutely. Hillary and Abbie, so during the production, one of the things that was actually fascinating that a lot of people will be watching is that how they were training for the competitions in high school hallways and such. Could you talk about how you managed to film that without getting in the way of their training, of their competition, or getting run down by a bunch of kids with with fake guns.
Yeah, we definitely did our best to be flies on the wall, and something that Maisie excels at is really, running this tight crew that's, only as big as it needs to be so that we can stay out of the way without compromising what we're able to capture. But at times, they run these drills over and over, and there were definitely times when they would bump into us and they would be like, okay, they need to start over again because we messed up their drill. But overall, the kids got really used to seeing us there. We just made ourselves very consistently present, and so they pretty much forgot we existed at times, and just operated around us. And yeah.
And I think also in one of the scenes in the film, you see that during the competition, we had GoPros on like all of the kids competing, and that really helped with our coverage of those moments. And I also think it was, for us, we looked at it kind of as like a police camera, and the way a police cam would capture from the perspective of the police officer. So I think that was one solution to like not having them lose the competition because of us.
If you want to July, you'll see that you'll see maybe a couple crew members in some of those shots, but it's kind of perfect because also when they're practicing in the halls, there's other students walking by who are not a part of the criminal justice club, and teachers who, are working after hours. And it's just such a wild sight to see these kids training if you're not accustomed to that.
I think at one moment you actually captured a couple of students who saw their training, and they kind of like gave a side-eyed or, rolled their eyeballs at them. Are like some students, other students who are not participants, do they look at this as ridiculous, or they just laugh it off, or have you ever tried to talk to them?
We, again, going back to wanting to keep it from the eyes of the students that were participating in it, we really just looked at it from their point of view. And so with those two students, who I actually don't think are students, I think they were student teachers, maybe from like a university. I don't know who they were, but the camera caught them walking by, and that was definitely like a look that the kids would get sometimes. So we wanted to include that.
Absolutely. And Hillary, tell us about the editing process of the post-production, that how you wanted to basically create the narrative exciting enough for us to actually, watch this, because some of the stuff unfold the story-wise was very captivating.
Yeah, I mean, we had so much great footage, but I think one kind of clarifying factor is looking for those moments where the participants were kind of really discovering something in themselves in the moment, and those moments were really the kind of thing you want in the story, because that change and that like reflection, that's what we want the viewer to see, is their personal experience as they lived it. And there are those like quiet, intimate moments with each of them, but also you have the training footage that is kind of exciting, and that's what draws a lot of these students to participate in this club and in this education program. So we kind of did that balancing act of wanting to have these quiet, intimate moments of reflection and growth, but then also a look into the club and the inner workings of what they do when they're there, and all of the things that they're learning that would prepare them for a career in this field. So yeah, the editing process was long, and when I came in, it was a lot of fun just to hear the story through Maisie and see the footage and have it all come together the way that it did. It was really cool.
Excellent. Well, hey, once again, ladies, congratulations for showcasing at the Ready documentary at Sundance Film Festival. I can't wait to hear about your next projects after this.
Thank you.
Thank you.